Views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Hello, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And we are not live. We're going to tell you right now. We are alive, but we are not live. We are taping because of Friday. CJ is off to his daughter's wedding. And as I said on the previous show, which was like 3 minutes ago, well, congratulations to your daughter. And so I think we could just kind of pick up from the last show. We had some, I think, some really important things to talk about the way this city is handled, or I think more accurately mishandled. We've got to deal with the fact that, as I said, we have ways and means committees on a federal level, a state level. We should probably have one in Fall River, because I would like to see us figure out how we're going to get the money to do the things that we project we're going to do. And, they say that we have this money, but then when the budget appears, we don't. We get a budget that says this is the budget for the water department, and now fees increases. And, yesterday, it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, I saw a little film clip on television news of Rand Paul declaring for the presidency. And what caught my eye, whether you like or dislike his father, Ron, or Rand Paul politically, he said something very interesting as part of his platform. And one of the things he wants to do as president, of course, what they say and what they do is two different things, but it's pretty unique. He said, why don't we just spend what we have and no more? Well, guess what? Why don't we do that with Fall River? And not only that, let's not only spend what we've got and only what we've got, let's spend it in the right places. We've said this time and time and time again, and I think when we closed the show and CJ talked about the increasing CSO costs, the increase in the fees that they said would never increase. But now they're going to have tiers. It's like hospitals. They tell you, we're not going to charge you anymore, but then they figure out ways to tier things, and now you're going to have different levels. They're going to go, well, we're not really charging you more. We just got a different way of determining how much that fee is, and it means it's more. So, it's political BS again, but, the city is getting poorer and poorer. Another restaurant goes down the toilet. Another thing goes down the toilet, and yet the only way they know how to do it is make everybody in this city poorer. I just got my property tax, my fire insurance, home insurance bill, and it's, again, every year it goes up, and it's astronomical. And because the insurance companies get to charge me what the replacement cost of my home is. So they're going to tell me it's going to cost $500,000 to replace my house. If I could get half of that right now, I would be happy, because property values in this city have plummeted so much. Years ago, in a time far off when money really mattered and politicians didn't spend it like water because they'd get voted out, property values were one of the few investments that always appreciated, not depreciated. And that's not true in Fall River. Most people, I've seen people take massive losses in their house just to get out of this city. I spoke to a guy that took a $100,000 loss on his house, and I said, why did you do that? He said, look, it's only going to get worse. He said, but I had to get out. He said, I can't take this place anymore. And as I said in the last show, at least CJ and I have hung around. We're still trying to fight the fight. And, the fight begins at the polls. You know, Samuel Gompers once said, when it came to labor, the power of labor lies in the vote. We elect our friends and defeat our enemies. But the reality is, the power of the people lies in the vote. And if we don't vote, if we don't get involved, if we don't get fired up like we did when they initiated pay as you throw, this city is never going to ever turn around, because, you know, the only way anybody knows how to do anything is tax and spend. And CJ said, you know, well, Mayor Sutter said, you know, he didn't lie. He said, we're going to have to raise taxes and fees. That's right. But he also said that he was going to change the way we do business, and he was going to change the government. We were going to have transparency. We have that transparency. I haven't heard, maybe you have, CJ, correct me. I haven't heard if the 4 treasurers that were related are gone. I haven't heard about anything being done about the 2 supervisors that are only a couple of years old in a DPW. There's very few men. I haven't heard about why we had 2 captains and a lieutenant added to the complement of the Fall River Fire Department when we laid off 11 firefighters that were funded by city money. All I see is more and more pork being added to the budget. So while the mayor was upfront about raising taxes and fees, I haven't seen anything on the opposite side of the coin. I want to know why I haven't seen any attempt to reorganize these departments, to restructure these departments, and to cut the fat. And I think he was quoted once as saying there's no fat in the budget. That's BS to the 10th power, maybe to the 100th power.
Well, you know, Chip, it's really interesting because, again, you know, this mayor said that he was going to do business differently. Yet, his first days in office, he tried to add 2 positions to city ordinance to give 2 friends jobs. Okay? He has since put on various boards and committees, staff from the district attorney's office. Again, business as usual for Fall River. We look at the departments that we've noted numerous times about people having jobs that are unnecessary, and there have been no layoffs, there have been no terminations. So we have to say, really, what have you done differently? These are all people who have political jobs. And the sad part about it is you have members of this city council who say, every vote I take, I do for the benefit of Fall River. Every vote I take, every resolution I sponsor, everything I do is what the people want. Are you serious? Do you? Do the people of Fall River look that stupid? Let's go over some of that real quick. I mean, honestly. Council President Joe Camara, as we know, has no love lost for Councilor Linda Pereira. But Councilor President Joe Camara sat down where he was supposed to sit, where he didn't sit yesterday, by the way, in the gallery, and said, "We didn't make mistakes. We've never made a mistake. You show us the mistakes." And I've said this before. It would take me 5 hours just to go over the list. It'd probably take another 5 with you, Chip. But let's go over this, okay? Let's start in Councilor in seat 1, Pat Casey, okay? Or as we lovingly call her, the Pet Rock. Pat Rock, okay? She's going around trying to vilify firefighters for working a 24-hour shift. Okay, you know, I'm going to call out Jason Burns on that because he said there are no reports showing that that is not safe. I found 6 in the city council chamber the day he said that. Am I against 24-hour shifts? Not necessarily. Am I for them? Again, not necessarily. You and I have talked about this, Chip. But really, Councilor Casey, you have to go around to city fire departments and ask firefighters, are you abusing your sick time? You want to hear an abuse of sick time, Councilor Casey? Here's an abuse of sick time. Let the firefighters all suffer the red flu, okay? And take 3 months off, half the department. Let's see what an abuse of sick time will be like. These men earn their time. They work hard, okay? They make sure that this city is safe, even though you, Councilor Casey, do nothing to keep them safe, except to gripe, piss, and moan, okay? You are so sick that you made sure, this is what you call a political game. You made sure that the veterans agent, Ray Haig, picked you up at the hospital as you left the intensive care unit against medical advice to be sure you showed up at the inauguration of the mayor so that you could vote Joe Camara in as council president, because God forbid that not happen. So you went putting your own life in jeopardy to make sure you were here. And don't say it was for the benefit of the city. No, it was so that then Mayor Flanagan and your friend, Council President Joe Camara, could get the seat, the control that the 6th floor and Councilor Camara at that time wanted. Okay? That's what you call a political game. And that's what you do. Because you've never had an original thought, Pat. You have always said, the mayor wants it, yes. The mayor wants it, yes. The mayor wants it, yes. You did that through this. You even tried to pass an emergency preamble for health and safety reasons for pay-as-you-throw fines. How is that fine for health and safety reasons? It's amazing how you people on the council can find a reason for everything. Now let's move to council in seat 2, Jason Correa. And the common complaint is you really weren't elected, Councilor Correa. You came in 10th, and the only reason why you got the seat was because the person who was elected, the turncoat, okay, the Benedict Arnold of Fall River, Kathy Ann Viveris, took the job as city administrator, which she wasn't qualified for, still isn't qualified for, and can't do to save her life. You've had some very interesting positions, but you, like the councilor in seat 1, have never met a resolution or an ordinance that you didn't like that was supported or shoved down the throats of the people of Fall River by a mayor. This is the first time you've grown a set where you've turned around and you said, I don't see why we have to do this if it's legal. Maybe you're finally learning that you don't represent you. You don't represent the...
Or maybe you're seeing the horizon in the next election. You're seeing the groundswell of opposition. You're seeing the fact that the people are sick and tired. They're paying attention. This is the issue. This is the issue that created the recall.
Right.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Not the only issue. Many, many issues that were piled upon, but this was the ultimate. And now people are tired, and now when they see their fees, now when they see their water bills, and it's going to be catastrophic. It's going to have a catastrophic effect financially on the city. And, we can go over these councilors, seat by seat. We should probably do that and probably do maybe a show on each seat. And if Joe Camara wants us to point out what they did wrong, and they always have the out, because everybody except, Pat Rock, who votes for everything, yes, no, I have to qualify. She did vote no once. She did oppose a mayoral initiative once. That was on the mixed martial arts school, then Mayor Correa was attempting to block. And that was because she was involved in some martial arts at one time. So that was the one and only time. But
again, self-interest.
But yeah,
again,
exactly.
Self-interest.
But that's the thing I really want to get into. It's about what they do. There's a difference between being a statesman and being a politician. See, politicians do what's politically expedient. Statesmen do what's right for the people they represent. And that's the issue. The issue here is, listen, they all got the out. I didn't vote for that budget, or I didn't vote for that park, or yeah, but that's one time. How about the other 97 times you did vote for things that we shouldn't be spending money on? That's what the problem is. If we go back and look at the roll call, they've all been complicit at one time or another with misappropriation of funds. If we take all the misappropriations of funds that we've had over the last 5 years, I don't think I can find one councilor that didn't vote against the taxpayer. And that's the problem. The problem is politicians. They always got an excuse, and we said that on the last show. I'm tired of excuses. You know, I don't want to hear it. We're not, no, they make more money than, no. Well, you know, we can learn. We can learn from communities that are successful. We can't even look down the road 15 miles to New Bedford and say, wow, they're actually like doing container shipping. Maybe we should do that. No, let's try to out waterfront Newport, Rhode Island and Cape Cod. Yeah. Good luck with that one, people. You know, the fact is that, look, I'm going to give you an actual story to show how politicians think. Many years ago, we had a state rep from the east end of the city. He's no longer there, hasn't been there in a very long time. But he was a fairly new rep, and he was in his second term. And we were up in Boston lobbying to reinstitute binding arbitration in the event of in contract failure, to allow a mechanism for fire and police unions, if they've been held up for an extremely long time, to go there and have a neutral arbitrator decide. And some have been won, some have been lost. We did it twice, we won twice because we had a good case. But the fact is, when we went up to the lobby, then State Representative Correa was there, and we told him, and he said, yeah, you know, I understand, I support it. And when we went to this other state rep, and we had 2 out of 3, and we visited his office, and I sat in his office and explained why this thing should be a viable alternative to allow people to have due process, because public employees can't strike. I mean, the fact is, you know, in reality, they can hold you hostage forever. You know, fire departments can't strike, police departments can't strike. And we wouldn't want to for the public safety. But the fact is, if you can't strike, what other leverage do you have? You're going to have to come to work every day if they hold you without a contract for 10 years. So I sat down and I explained things to him, and he looked at me and said, well, you know, he said, a lot of my district is in Westport. And Westport has a lot of Republicans and conservatives, and they don't want binding arbitration. He said, so I know you've got the votes to get this passed in the State House, so I'm going to vote no. Even though I know I should vote yes, I'm going to vote no. And if you really need my vote, I'll flip. And I went, no, we don't really need your vote. We don't really need you in this seat. And we worked and we got him out. But the fact is, that's a politician. You sit on a fence so far that the picket embeds itself in your derriere. And that's the problem with politics. They're always looking for not what's right, but what's politically expedient. He had a split district, and he knew that they would be upset, and he basically said, don't worry about it, you're going to get what you wanted. Well, no, we are worried. What's right is right. If I'm wrong, prove me wrong. If I'm right and you say I'm right, how can you vote against me? It's like, how can any counselor in their right mind justify a vote for that fountain? How can anybody not conduct a complete and thorough investigation and fire somebody over the windows? The $9,000 dollars were appropriate. They did a lot of talking, and nothing ever got done. Nobody's ever been held accountable. In the city of Fall River, there are no consequences for malfeasance, misfeasance, nonfeasance, and pure criminal acts, as a matter of fact. And that's the problem we have in the city. It's time to hold everybody accountable.
Well, that's a lovely position, but as you and I both know, it's very hard to have happen. And again, you know, we've seen this over and over again. And when you look at the Magnificent Nine have done, they've done nothing. You know, some of those people have been there for years, like Pat Rock and Linda Pereira. You know, those are two people, right? Joe Camara. They've all got 20 plus years. Leo Pelletier. They've all got 20 plus years on those seats. And they turn around and they say, we've made no mistakes. This is how we do politics in Fall River. Leo Pelletier, I had no idea that it was against the law for a city employee to solicit funds. And by the way, the city employee wasn't soliciting funds. The city employee was sitting there taking the checks. That's, by definition, soliciting funds. You were taking the money. But we don't do that, so we'll admit we're wrong and we'll pay the fine or whatever it is. And they did. And everyone's trying to brush it under the rug because, you know, it's Leo. They're picking on him. It's not Leo, it's picking on him. This is the way it's done in politics. We know. We know in the building inspector's office. We know in the engineering office. We know in DCM that tickets have, for years, been sold over the counter. For years, we've sold tickets over the counter to people for politicians. That's illegal. You can't even sit in a city, state, or municipal building and say to your friend next door, your friend sitting in the seat next to you, oh, by the way, I've got a ticket here for Joe Schmo's mayoral kickoff campaign. Do you want to go? You can't do that. You cannot sell a ticket in a state building. You just can't do it. But we do it anyhow because who cares? It's not a big deal. No, it is a big deal. The law is the law for everybody. And, you know, you go across that line of councilors, and we are going to have to do that. Every day we're going to have to pick a councilor. But you look at Paul DeSilva, who's done nothing. As a matter of fact, Paul DeSilva is so reputable that his own campaign treasurer quit because of improprieties. A woman, by the way, that I'm not going to mention her name, but, you know, she could not, in all good conscience, work for this gentleman anymore. Okay? Mike Miozo, who turns around and says, oh, I missed that in the budget. How can you say you missed something in the budget when you go back to the budget hearings, and remember, they're taped. You ask the question, don't you think this amount is too low? How convenient it is for your memory. Okay? Either it's Alzheimer's setting in early, or you're a liar. Those are your two options. I mean, that's the way it is. They don't like that.
Well, I have to say that, you know, I know Joe Camara made that statement. I'm not sure if we asked every other counselor there if they would, well, with the exception of Pat Casey, because, you know, I'm sure that she would go to her grave saying that whatever a mayor, you know, every mayor has the best interest of the city at heart. Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But the fact is, I don't think if we asked most of the city councilors if they'd ever made a vote that they, you know, which they could take back, I'm sure everybody except Joe Camara probably would say yes, because I have spoken to some of those councilors, and they've taken some good positions sometimes, and they've actually fought for those positions. But the problem is, it can't be only once in a while. It has to be all the time. And that's what has to be the criteria. Either you represent the people all the time, that there are consequences for improper actions, just as we give out commendations to people for good actions, we should be giving out condemnations to people who don't. And the fact is that I don't think most of these councilors would say, 20 years here, I never had a vote that I didn't regret. And I think that, and that's one of the problems. I think well, not we, but they have allowed themselves, and I think it's kind of almost a built-in excuse, and it shouldn't happen any longer. They have allowed themselves to be put in positions where everything's at the 11th hour. We're rushing. We have to do this because we're going to start getting fined next month. And they allow mayors to bring things down at the 11th hour, dump it on them, and then they go, well, I didn't have enough time to research. Well, guess what? That should never happen again. Because I'll tell you, they tried that with the health care this year, and I, as the representative for the retirees told the city in no uncertain terms at a meeting with the mayor's representatives there that I would categorically never sign anything now because they waited till the last minute again and tried to rush us into a different plan. And the last time they did that, it had catastrophic an effect on everybody because even Blue Cross didn't know what was covered, what wasn't covered, because they rushed, because they needed money again. And I said, it's not going to happen. You're not going to get, never. It's not going to happen. The city council has to begin to look at every single expenditure with a microscope. Not just say, we don't have time. Oh, yeah, well, we'll believe the Treasurer's Department that hasn't been right since the last ice age. We're going to believe the city administrator who changes her numbers every single meeting. That's baloney. You're not doing your job. If you want to have a 15-minute meeting all the time, get another job. Because I expect city councilors to sit in that chamber and do their due diligence. And that means every time we spend a penny of the taxpayers' money, you better have all the information possible. You better get as much research as possible on the issue. And then I can say, well, you made a conscious, intelligent vote. I don't ever want to hear from any councilor, well, you know, we had to get this done right now. Well, guess what? If the mayor doesn't get it, send the mayor a letter and say, we want prior notice. We want enough time to give these issues the time that's necessary to make a real, effective decision for the taxpayers. Because you know something? All we do now is approve everything, as I said, and then we figure out where we're going to get the money later, and the result is a city that, again, every taxpayer in this community, again, is going to have a higher water bill, a higher meter fee, a higher every kind of fee, higher property taxes, and if you're lucky, you'll be on the Christmas list and you'll get your pay-as-you-throw fine.
Hey, you know what? I'm done with it already. Because everything in the city is always a last-minute thing. And the city council is always, well, it's not our fault. The mayor presented last minute and we had to act. You know what? You don't do that in Newton. You don't do that in Boston. You don't do that in New Bedford. Okay? Fall River is no better. What should happen is it gets sent downstairs. We need $2.5 million for this. We need $800,000 for a park. Was it included in the budget this year? No. Is it a dire emergency? Well, we have to do it because if we don't, the Highland Neighborhood Association is going to be upset. If we don't, the South End Neighborhood Association is going to be upset. If we don't, the St. Anne's Neighborhood Association is going to be upset. You know what? Too bad it's not in the budget. Bring it up next year. End of story. They got to have a backbone. They got to grow a set. The problem is that means they got to have a backbone and they got to grow a set. And we know in Fall River that's not acceptable. You know? And that's the sad part about it. People just don't get representation. Instead, they get legislation by crisis.
Yeah, and that's the way we've always done it. And I want to touch upon something that's really bothering me about this. You know, it was referred back to committee, the pay-as-you-throw fines, the ordinance. But it disturbs me that the mayor has supposedly said that he's going to do it regardless. Well, if that's the case, why did you bother even sending it to the council? Just do it. And it disturbs me that he has, you know, this much disregard for the process, and he is doing exactly what Mayor Flanagan did when he circumvented the council. If you send something down and you don't care what action they take anyway, I mean, you're kind of like ignoring them just like Flanagan did. So remember, get out there and vote and start getting active.
I agree. Have a great weekend.